So we're gonna get started. I want to thank everyone for coming out. This is our last speaker for tonight. So let's give him a round of applause. Warm welcome.
Thank you. Thanks to you guys.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Timothy and Chandler, for coming out. Yeah.
Of course.
For sure.
Yeah.
All right, sounds good. All right, aloha, good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for coming. I appreciate it. I know this is the end of a long day of conferences, and so we're glad to have a turnout here. And we hope we can take you out of Grand Forks for at least about 40 minutes tonight and give you some sights of Hawaii and tell you about Hawaiian Airlines and what it's like to work for Hawaiian. So I know we have some tough acts to follow, a lot of very accomplished people with a lot of great things that they've done. So we're going to kind of go off a little bit of a different tangent, go more towards the airline tangent, and tell you about how Chandler and I got to where we are today, and about Hawaiian, because it's probably a company that you may not have heard of, and if you have, you're still not real familiar, and let you know that it's another really great opportunity out there in airline flying. So we'll get started here, and let's see if the clicker is going to work. There's always going to be some kind of, nope, it's not going to work, so we'll do it this way. All right, 2022 Sam. All right, how many people have actually, besides the Hawaii people, how many people have heard of Hawaiian Airlines? Okay, awesome. All right, how many people have flown on Hawaiian? Yeah, okay, good. All right. All right, again, so I'm Tim Lovell. I'm a graduate of UND. I was a flight instructor here, worked in a regional airline, and then ended up at Hawaiian. I've been there for just about 11 years now. I'm a first officer on the A330.
I'm a Chandler Mato, 2013 graduate, flight instructor as well, went to a couple regionals, and Airbus 330 first officer as well.
All right, so it's kind of spring break time. We're gonna try and show you a few little videos here. We've got pictures, videos, slides, so bear with us. We're gonna try and set the mood here. Is there any way I can turn the volume up a little bit? There we go. Stay with it. Hang with it. All right, there you go. The Hawaii starts here. Let's start it. All right, so today's presentation's topics to discuss. I already went over some of it, but about Hawaiian, give you some insight on that, our career paths, and what it's actually like to work for the airline. And then if there's time, questions, and hopefully some good answers for you all. All right, so where did we start? That should look familiar to you. Like I said, we're both graduates of UND. I'm not going to disclose the year I graduated. Chandler can probably tell you what year he graduated.
Yep, I started in 2009 and graduated in 2013.
So it should look familiar for you. Right there. You guys still flying Piper aircraft? Okay. All right. So that was pretty much the fleet when I was there. That should look familiar to you out at the airport. I think there's a new sign there now. That's me and my dad back in the day. Like I said, I ended up, after instructing, I taught everything from primary up through MEI at UND for about a year and a half, just about 2 years. I got hired at what was Masaba Airlines, which then merged with Colgan Pinnacle and became Endeavor. I was in the Saab 340 for 11 years. Yep, you heard it, 11 years. That just is the decade that I was in the regionals from 2000 to 2011. About half-time in each seat, left seat, right seat. Based in Detroit. There's a nice snowy picture of Minneapolis. Then we became Delta Connection and eventually Endeavor.
There I am. Flight instructor, years 2012 to 2013 at North Dakota. I was one of the luckier ones where during that time the hiring really started to pick up, especially for the regionals. I went straight to ExpressJet, where I was a Embraer 145 first officer based out of Houston, Texas. After 1 year, I then transitioned to be a little bit closer to Hawaii. I was commuting at the time, so I moved over to Compass Airlines, flying the Embraer 175 out of Los Angeles. Upgraded in 1 year back then, and then moved over to Hawaiian in 2016.
Yeah, so you'll notice, you might be, well, how did it happen so fast for Chandler, and why was I at a regional for 10 years? It's all timing, and you guys know that by now. That's how this industry was. I got hired at Masaba in 2000. We had September 11th. And then we had the age 65 rule where retirement got pushed up. And then we had bankruptcies. Then we had SARS, swine flu. It was endless. So there was no movement. So it's all cyclical. Right now is a really good time. You guys are hitting a good spot where things are moving fast. All right, so who are we? Who is Hawaiian Airlines? What is the workforce like? What is the company like? So in the airline world, we are a relatively small airline. We have about 8,000 employees system-wide, and that's basically all over the globe, everywhere we go. Why are we unique? We basically operate on one business model. Our business model is bringing people to and from Hawaii, whether they're flying from New York to the islands or they're flying from Tokyo en route to New York City. But our plan is to hopefully have them stop in Honolulu for about 3 or 4 days, spend time in Hawaii, and then connect on to the continental US or another destination. That is our business model, meaning everything comes in and out of Hawaii. All of our trips that Chandler and I do start and finish in Honolulu. So we are a pretty unique airline in that respect, that we focus on the leisure market. So we cater to people who could be on the vacation of a lifetime, may have saved their entire lives for a trip to Hawaii, a trip to Australia, somewhere that we fly. And that's basically our job, to set ourselves apart from everybody else that flies to Hawaii. Because let's face it, everybody does fly to Hawaii, and it's a tight market. But the difference is that's all we do. So we have to have that edge over everybody else. That makes us a niche carrier, that business model, that everything is in and out of Hawaii. That is our niche, that is our market. The other unique thing about us is we have ultra short segment and ultra long segment flying, meaning you could be an inter-island pilot on the Boeing 717 in your longest flight, maybe 30 minutes, 35 minutes. The shortest flight, maybe 18 to 20 minutes. So, or on the flip side, a lot of what I do, I might fly from Honolulu to Boston, which is about a 9-hour flight, and then coming home to Hawaii, it's about 11 hours. Ultra long segment. Or you may be going to Seoul or somewhere else, Sydney. Very long flying, probably 2 crews. So we have kind of both extremes, but that gives you a choice as somebody who might want to work at Hawaiian. Another little video just to kind of express how we are this niche carrier, leisure carrier.
Welcome aboard Hawaiian Airlines. Hello, Wakako. Flight attendants, please.
So that's basically what we do, and we want to get that point across. It is our job to take you away from yours. So escape everyday life and come out to a paradise for a vacation. So we say Hawaii flies with us, meaning the minute you get on the airplane, you're in Hawaii. Whether it's the greeting you get, the flowers on the airplane, the music, the look of the airplane, our paint scheme, everything. We want to express that. We want your vacation to start now. Where did it start from? Well, it's hard to believe, but Hawaiian is actually the second oldest airline in the world behind KLM. We are the oldest US airline still continuously operating, meaning we've never merged, we've never been acquired. We are still operating under the same operating certificate from the Federal Aviation, or what was the FAA back then, that we've always had. So we are the oldest US airline. A lot of people don't know that. Started in 1928, there was a Navy pilot, Stanley Kennedy, basically convinced his father, who owned a shipping company, to say, hey, you know what, there's these things called airplanes now. They're a lot faster. They can get us from island to island without getting wet, hopefully, and people are really gonna like it. And so they started giving sightseeing tours with one airplane, this Belanca, 5 passengers, and it really gained popularity. Before long, 1934, they started to implement scheduled service. This was their first route from Honolulu to the island of Maui, that's the Maui airport, to the big island in Hilo. Took 3 hours and 15 minutes. Today that trip would probably take about maybe 20 minutes in between legs. Airplanes got larger, 16 passengers. Then they got the amphibians where they could actually just land in the water. A canoe would come out and bring them back to the beach. You're there. That's your airport back then. More people started to catch on to this. It was convenient. It helped. Some more early aircraft, more people flying. 1941, big year because the DC-3 came over from Oakland on the West Coast. That was a big airplane for Hawaiian Airlines. What I didn't mention, and I should have, is that the company in 29 started as Inter-Island Airways, and then they actually changed their name to Hawaiian Airlines, the name that we know today. It started to kind of focus more on the tourism aspect as more people started to travel and visit the islands. You can see here this DC-3, they were all configured with these large windows that were specifically meant for sightseeing. And it was very successful in creating a prosperous future for Hawaiian.
And just sorry.
Yeah, no, this
Another
is a
little
good story.
fun story. We had 3 DC-3s delivered to Hawaiian back in October of 1941, right before Pearl Harbor. So we were actually boarding a DC-3 on that morning of December 7th, 1941, when the attack actually happened. The Japanese came in and they strafed the airport. They strafed the civilian side, also the military side. Well, it just so happened that there was a fire that started from the strafing in the cockpit. There were 2 total waves of the attack. So the first one started the fire. When the second strafe came by, one of the bullets actually hit the fire extinguisher in the cockpit and it put out the fire. The cockpit was totally destroyed, but the aircraft was in perfectly good shape. It started to fly a couple months after it got attacked.
Yeah, and apparently it flew around with bullet holes in the cockpit for the next existence of its life. But hey, we made it work.
Whatever works.
Yeah. Another thing, 1942, Hawaiian Airlines still to this day has the #1 cargo airline certificate. So long before FedEx, UPS, DHL, any other cargo carrier. We were the very first ones to say, hey, you know what? We can fly boxes on these airplanes. #1 certificate in the United States, we still have it. So 40s and 50s, more growth, more passengers, airplanes got bigger. Convair 340, first pressurized airplane, moved into a DC-6, faster, bigger. By 1959, now we're flying nearly 500,000 passengers per year. Now that's just in between the islands, so that's a lot of traffic back then. This is one of our early logos, and we actually keep it to this day. That's the logo that's on our wings. It's also on our hats. It's pretty classic, so they keep a lot of the old-time stuff around. 1960s, first jet at Hawaiian Airlines. It was the DC-9, the classic Diesel 9. But it was revolutionary in the sense that it took this flight time in between the islands from hours to minutes, 20 minutes, 25 minutes, and it was super quiet. People couldn't believe it. And Hawaiian was quite proud of that. We are one of the airlines that flew the DC-9 for probably too long, probably a good 60 years. But it was really a workhorse of the airline, and people absolutely love it. And we still continue with the Boeing 717 to this day. 1979, another first for Hawaiian Airlines. First all-female flight deck crew. Captain and first officer, that was a first. It's not widely known, but that was Hawaiian Airlines. The captain in the left seat is Captain Eminger, and her son is actually one of our captains now to this day. Airplane's getting bigger. DC-8 comes along. Stretching the legs a little bit. Now to the mainland, South Pacific, getting further and bigger. DC-10, so as you can see the trend, we're growing and growing. Service increases, expands, airplanes are getting much bigger. Early 2000s, 767 comes. Hawaiian Airlines is the first airline to get 180-minute ETOPS approval for the 767. Is anybody familiar? Have you learned about ETOPS, long range over water flying at all? But anyway, basically, it was the first time the 767 was allowed to fly a really long distance over water, and Hawaiian was able to get that. So after all that, who are we? After 93 years? Well, that's what we're going to try and tell you here.
We're building something. We're charting a course. Assembling the newest, most advanced fleet in the nation. Serving more destinations than ever before, while remaining true to our home and its traditions. Because wherever we fly, Hawaii flies with us.
So again, even though we're getting bigger, flying bigger planes and a lot more people to many different cities, we're keeping the culture of Hawaii and everything we do centered around that principle. Here's what our fleet is today: Hawaiian Airlines, A321, A330, 717, Airbus and Boeing. Boeing 717, that's the inter-island aircraft. So if you're on that, you're going to fly in between the islands, do mostly day trips. And we also have the Airbus, like I said, A321 and the A330. The 321 we use pretty much for mid-range flying, so that's going to be mostly the islands to the west coast. I think it goes as far as Vegas, maybe Phoenix.
Yeah.
Yeah. But we have the new engine option. It's been really good for fuel economy. The company is really happy with it. We like it as well. The 330, which Chandler and I both fly, it's the mid and long range. We have 24 of those. That's about 300 passengers. That's what we use for the bulk of our long range flying. 787, nope, didn't make it in 21. We really were hoping, but there was a series of factors. Of course, we had COVID, we all know about that, but also the issue with the Boeing side of it came up, and that prevented us from taking delivery of the aircraft. So right now, we're forecasting the first quarter of 2023 to get our first 787, and that's going to be basically our still mid, long range, but also long, ultra long range aircraft. We have two. Unfortunately, they're sitting in the desert. Somebody got some secret photo, and here I'm exposing it today at this conference. But that's one of them that's sitting there. So we're looking forward to getting that. We're going to be doing a lot of hiring because they're telling us that this airplane is going to often require 2 full crews. So we're thinking it's going to have definite long range, Perth, Melbourne, probably into China. A lot of longer range destinations. Europe has always been rumored, and I think they're probably going to do it. On the worldwide wide body side of the 330 and the 787, this is your typical schedule, not schedule I should say, but that is the route map. That's where we currently serve. So again, everything is in and out of the islands, but all over the place. Longest distance flights, we have, I think right now we decided it was Boston, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, Honolulu to Boston is the longest scheduled domestic U.S. flight. So it's not too bad going over at night. We go over usually as a red eye. It's about 9 hours, but coming back it's always maybe 11 plus. But it's a lot of fun. It's a good trip. All right, after all that, what is it actually like to fly for Hawaiian? So we want to give you an idea of if you do come to work for Hawaiian, or you're considering it as an airline of choice, then what is it like to work here? Just a little video here to kind of give you a sense of what it's like to be a part of this Ohana family.
We love our home. And we love sharing it with you.
Can't read the titles. Those are all of our active
Welcome
employees.
to our traditions. Welcome to our favorite places. Welcome to our inspiration. Mahalo for flying with the airline dedicated to Hawaii. We're proud to share the spirit of the islands. On behalf of our entire Hawaiian Airlines Ohana.
Aloha kako, mai kala hiki a kala ko. Aloha mai, welcome aboard.
Not a bad place to be based. All right, pilot group at a glance. So what is our pilot group like? So just over 1,000 pilots, about 1,020 pilots. You can either be, like I said, inter-island, meaning you're on the Boeing 717 flying between the islands, or the worldwide side, flying the long range or to and from the West Coast. Yes, we have one pilot base. all the pilots are consolidated now into Honolulu, so you can either live in base in Hawaii or you can commute. I live in Portland, Oregon, so I commute. All my trips start and finish in Honolulu. We have a lot of commuters. We have a lot of people that live in Hawaii. It is both. One interesting thing I think about Hawaiian that kind of makes it all work, Chandler and I were talking about it this morning, is we have a real hodgepodge of a pilot group. We have people from the military. We have people civilian. We have people that have only flown in Hawaii. We have people that have never flown in Hawaii until Hawaiian. We have heavy guys who have lots of heavy time. We have guys that don't have any heavy time. So it's people from all different backgrounds, cultures, different types of work that they have done, and so it's really something that makes us pretty unique. As far as the split of the pilot group, we have about 175 in the inter-island side, and then A330, about 200, A321, the rest. So it's split pretty good. This is a pretty good video. I wish the sound was a little bit louder to hear, but this is from our recruitment department, and I think more than me sitting up here and talking, this will give you a good idea of what it's like to be a pilot at Hawaii.
Well, it's pretty well known that if you're a pilot at a major airline that you're going to be gone for 3, 4, possibly 5 days at a time.
Inter-island is really the best kept secret.
It's really one of the main reasons I love Hawaiian Airlines.
What I like about Inter-island is it affords me the ability to live a normal lifestyle. I get off work, I can go meet friends, maybe go to the gym, have dinner. Basically, I'm able to create a stable, healthy lifestyle that works for me.
When I first got hired at Hawaiian Airlines, I was 27 years old, and the first place I flew to was to Sydney, Australia. At this young of an age, I never thought it would be possible to have a career as an international pilot. At other airlines, it usually takes 5 to 10 years flying domestically before you're able to transition into a wide-body international aircraft. But I had just been hired, and my first flight was to a foreign destination. It's amazing to travel all around the world, but the best part is, at the end of every trip, I get to fly home, and it's paradise. Hawaii is the most incredible place to live, and I'm not just saying that because I grew up here. There's beautiful beaches, amazing food, epic hikes, and pretty much perfect weather year-round.
At Hawaiian, we're a small pilot group. It's like family. It's like Ohana. You know everybody.
It's a very special and unique culture working at Hawaiian Airlines. It really reflects the culture of Hawaii in general.
For a lot of pilots around the world, their dream is to fly international wide-body aircrafts. It's accepted that you're going to have to spend 10 years or so to get there. But here I am, 32 years old, flying to all these exotic locations. I get to live in Hawaii, and I get to fly with the most incredible crews in the world. You don't get a lot of these kind of opportunities at other airlines, and that's why I love working here.
I've worked at several other airlines before coming here, but I could never put a price tag on these things. Being able to live a balanced lifestyle in paradise with such a close group of friends and colleagues, now that I'm working for Hawaiian, I have found my dream job.
So hopefully that kind of gives you a little bit of a better idea of kind of kind of the different dynamics we have in the two different types of flying, and why it might suit one person better than another person. All right, so just to kind of show you, this is a day in the life type stuff for me and Chandler. This is back flying the 717, just having some fun, crew selfies here. This is in between flights. That's one thing about inter-island. You'll fly over to Maui, you'll have maybe 20 minutes, 25 minutes, so you take selfies, or you go grab a coffee, or you do something. That's the beauty of it. You're not stuck in your seat for 5 hours. A few more little day in the life pictures. Should answer that.
As far as university flight schools, no. There are a lot of FBOs and private flight school companies out there. We used to have, actually UND used to have a Hawaii satellite out there, but I think it closed back in 2008, unfortunately.
Someone told me that they couldn't have like the long-range flight training like across countries, I think.
I'm not sure.
Could be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, there are definitely think there's probably 3 major flight schools, I would say,
Yeah.
out in the islands.
Yeah, definitely. So the inter-island flying on the 717, why is it different? Because you don't go back and forth between fleet types, but it's all day trips if you want, so you're home every night. So that's pretty much unheard of as an airline pilot. It's really nice. I did it for about 4.5 years. I loved every minute of it. You only fly to 5 airports. You're either a AM or a PM. I was PMs. I'm not going to get up. So it was great. I would get up when I got up. I'd go for a run in the morning, have lunch, go into work, fly 6 legs, and call it a day. It was fantastic. Now, I had to put this disclaimer in here because they just started this. They are doing some overnights now because we got to stay competitive with Southwest, who just started flying inter-island. So we need to have those early morning departures out of the outer islands into Honolulu. So they are doing some overnights now on the 717, but we'll see how long that stays around. There's your route map. That's what you're going to do all day. If you thought Devil's Lake, Grand Forks, Jamestown got repetitive. But the scenery is much better, and we will show you that. This is a typical what we call a pairing. This is a day. This is a trip, inter-island. You can see it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 legs. Starting at 2:16 in the afternoon, you go to Maui, and then you go Maui Hilo, Hilo Honolulu, then you go to Kona, then you go to Lehui, and then you call it a day. So it's busy flying, it's fast-paced, but it's a lot of fun, and you adjust to it. This is a typical schedule. This is a month laid out just like that. So each one of those little partitions is a day. And the days with the writing, that's a work day. So this person works 2 days, 2 off, 4 on, 3 off, 4 on, 3 off. Again, home every night. That's the beauty of inter-island. 717 operations, multiple legs, like I said, 4 to 9 days, quick turns, 80% VFR conditions, VFR approaches. You get really good at flying visuals. But what are some of the challenges of it? It's not all sunshine. There's a lot of terrain, rapidly rising terrain, a lot of short runways, a lot of wind, and short flights, so you're very busy. This is Kahului Maui Airport, for example. Always windy, and if it's not windy, don't go there. There's something wrong. So I always have to ask, why is this airport so windy? Looking at it, what does it look like? Yeah, exactly. It's like a big venturi. So that wind just whips in right through the 2 mountains there. You have Haleakala, which is a 12,000-foot mountain right here, and the West Maui Mountains on the other side. So there's no room for any deviation. This is Lehui. This is on the island of Kauai. So the trick on this one is to stay above the lighthouse at the end of the runway. So sometimes at night, that's challenging. It's always a wet runway at night. There's always a nasty crosswind. You'll do that 4 or 5 times a day. Another runway. Just some pictures from inter-island flying just to give you a day in the life of. It's beautiful stuff. And Chandler, if your pictures come up, jump in.
Yeah. Okay.
This looks like coming into Maui. Taxiing out in Kauai. Mauna Kea, Mauna Loa. In the winter, it does snow in Hawaii, believe it or not. There it is. This is everyday flying.
Downtown Honolulu with a nice rainbow. Molokai, Maui, Kaho'awe. I believe that's Molokai. Same islands. We have a very limited amount of.
Yeah, no, but you get to know them really well.
Yeah.
You want me to go back?
No, that's
good.
fine.
Okay.
Yeah. That's in Maui.
Yeah, just another day in Maui.
So this is a special trip I did. Ever since COVID, we started to do a lot of military charters. And one of the main ones we started to do was within Japan, Okinawa, and Guam. So this is just a picture. I think we were flying from Narita to Kadena Air Force Base in Okinawa. So the flight path brought us right over Mount Fuji. So this is in Japan.
Yeah, and Chandler brings up a good point there. So, during COVID, everybody's operations kind of shrank. And we have a very small operation as it is. So what did we do? We had to become resourceful. Military charters, we did a lot of those. We're still doing those. We did a lot of cargo-only flights, and it probably saved us by doing some other operations.
Just to kind of give you an idea, on average, pre-COVID, 260 flights a day. During COVID, 36.
Yeah, it was down. And a bulk of those were inter-island. I think we were flying maybe to 3 mainland cities,
Yeah,
if that.
yeah.
So it was pretty sad. But it's coming back. This was nice, coming into Honolulu. Yep. So what's missing in this picture? Somebody always gets it. Tie, exactly. Why? Inter-island, you don't wear a tie. If that's not reason enough. All right, what about the bigger plane? What's it like to be on the Airbus? Fly the Airbus side, the wide body, the worldwide side, we call it. All right, A330-200, so this is what Chandler and I fly. Some pictures here. I think that was when I was in training. I was walking around the airplane and thinking, wow, this thing is really big. I don't know, but it's not that bad. It's just an airplane.
Yeah, same as well. Left side is when I think we had a contract with Disney to advertise for Moana. So we had 3 aircraft with the Moana stickers on the side. Kona Airport is in the middle. It's one of the I think it's our only airport where we board from the ground.
Yeah, no
domestically.
jet bridges,
Yeah.
completely open air outside. It's a lot of fun. People kind of see the plane and they've got their roller bags and they see the stairs and they're like,
Yeah, everyone takes their
Around.
phone now and they're just
What?
blocking everybody. Like, come on, let's board. We got to go on time. We are the #1 on-time carrier in the U.S. as well.
we are. We're very proud of that record. Again, going back to the worldwide route map, that's pretty accurate. So you can see you could be anywhere from Orlando to Seoul to Sydney to Papeete. We cover a lot of ground. Flying the bus, worldwide, like I said, multi-day trip. So for us, your longest trip is going to be 5 days at the very, very most. And that's another thing that makes us a unique carrier. You're going to fly 1 leg out, 1 leg back. Well, it's a 5-day trip. Well, that means you have 2 or 3 days of a layover time in Auckland or Sydney or Tokyo or somewhere like that. So there's never more than, unless it's some unusual circumstance, it's 1 leg out, 1 leg back. It's really, really nice. 2 to 5 days. We do some charter flights. We do football charters for the Raiders, a lot of military charters, and sometimes cargo charters. You're going to do both international and domestic. You'll do, of course, U.S. and then all of our international destinations. You may be part of an augmented crew, so that's something that Chandler and I will do. We may be either a first officer or what's called a RO, an IRO, International Relief Officer. So essentially on some of these real long haul flights, like down to Sydney or to Seoul, you will be the third pilot, the relief pilot. You will sit and be the captain while the captain is on break. You will sit and be the first officer while the first officer is on break. So that's how that works. There's no rhyme or rhythm to it. Typically it's the least senior person that is the RO, but some people choose it, they like it. The only downside is you don't get the landings, but it's not bad, so you're the third crew member. Again, talking about trips, what does a typical trip look like when I say we go on these legs and out and back? Well, for example, the one on top, that's a trip, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. It's 5 days, that's probably our longest trip. You leave Honolulu at 2, you get to Seoul, South Korea, 8 o'clock p.m. their time. You're there for 2 days, standover, layover days, and then you come back the following evening. That's your trip, 1 leg out and back. There's a New York trip in the middle, Honolulu, JFK. So you leave Honolulu in the afternoon, you get to JFK really early in the next morning their time, and then you leave the next morning. So very simple trips, good flying.
Our schedules also are awarded based on how many hours. So we have a minimum of 75 hours. So you look at that JFK, or on the last, sorry. So the JFK is worth 20 hours and 50 minutes, meaning you only have to do 4 JFKs and you're done. So that's 12 days of work, 18 or 19 days off, depending on the bid month.
Yeah, that's a good point. So that's another thing about our flying. I mean, I commute, so I tend to stack my trips together. So I might do 2 JFKs back to back, and I'll do that twice a month. And that's basically all I do. So then I commute twice. It works out really good. It is, it's a lot of flying. It's 40 hours of flying in 4 days. I'm actually 25, but the flying breaks you down. Okay, nobody's laughing. It's supposed to be a joke, right? Yeah, no.
And also remember too, everyone gets a break on these long haul flights. So you're spending 6.5 hours of the whole trip watching Netflix or sleeping
Yeah.
in a first class seat.
Yes. You're on break while you're doing this stuff.
Yeah.
You're
Yeah,
not
yeah,
up
yeah,
front,
on break.
Yeah. So it seems like a lot, but like anything, you acclimate to it, and it actually works out to be really efficient. Just talking about seniority too. Well, some of the trips are better than other trips. That's going to go at any airline. We have some senior trips at the top, a nice flight to Osaka, a layover, and come back. Real easy. Down on the bottom, some not so friendly trips. We have a trip to Las Vegas really early in the morning, and then you lay over, and then you leave at 2 a.m. 2 mornings later. So I don't know, it's so bad I can't even process it. So those tend to go junior. So it's all based on seniority. Obviously, it's a mix of trips, but when things are moving, it's easier to hold the better trips. That's a trip to Sydney that we do. Again, pretty friendly. Leave at noon Hawaii time, get to Sydney that evening, but the next day, and then the next. Yeah, it gets confusing. Even I'm still confused this many years later. But you leave the next evening and get back to Honolulu the same morning. So you actually time travel. You go back and yeah. Typical Airbus schedule. I like to show this because it's what I've been talking about. You can build your schedule however it suits your lifestyle. Hawaiian is very much a lifestyle airline. People choose to work at Hawaiian because of our trips, because of the type of flying, because of the cities that we go to. That's my schedule on that second line there. You can see I do 1 Sydney, have about a week off. I do 2 trips to JFK and a Japan, have about a week off. Come back and do an Australia, and that's it for the month. So everybody builds their schedule differently, and we have a bidding system that allows you to preference to build your schedule how you like. Some people like to stack everything. Some people will do 2 weeks in a row, have 2 weeks off. Other people just want weekends off, so there's a lot of flexibility. Augmented crew, this is kind of what I was talking about. I just threw this in here just to give you an example of what a typical augmented crew is. That was, I think that was probably Osaka, must have been around Christmas time. That's one of our super senior captains, check airmen. I was the RO, the International Relief Officer, and First Officer Ivan in the right seat. So we would launch off out of Osaka. I would go on break first, go back for maybe an hour, hour and a half, 2 hours at the most, and then probably the captain would go on break. So I would then essentially, for all intents and purposes, you are the pilot in command at that time. And then you'll do the same thing for the first officer when they go on break. All right, so just to kind of wrap it up here, here's where we started. Back in 1929, that's the first airplane there, the Belanca, giving some sightseeing tours. There's that airplane today. We still have it. All these years later, it's pretty wild. We still have the airplane. And Chandler and I were just talking today, it's a benefit to the employee group. You can sign up to take your friends and family on a sightseeing tour in that airplane, and it's flown by Hawaiian pilots.
And it's free.
And it's free.
Yeah.
And it's fun. It's loud, though. Bring your earplugs. There it is. Usually every new hire class will, I don't know if they still do this, but they used to take a picture in front of the Belanca. As you're beginning your journey at Hawaiian Airlines, we like to bring you to our very first airplane, where it all started, where we are today. And one little closing video just to kind of, again, express how things are at Hawaiian Airlines.
To those of us who share these islands, flying is a way of life. Every day, Hawaii flies with us.
All right. All right, closing thoughts. So the company puts out several publications periodically, about once a month from different departments. We always get it's called a Hawiki. It's a newsletter that we get in flight operations. And they interview and profile different employees from around the company. And this was a quote from one of our employees, Kyla. She's the chief cargo agent at the Maui airport. And I really liked it, and I thought it was important to share with all of you today. She says, continuously work hard every day and strive to be the best version of yourself. Never give up, even when it's hard. There's always somebody there, someone there to help and support you. And I think that's really important, and I want to stress this point. Life is not easy. This career path is not easy. What you're doing right now is not easy. It's really stressful. There's a lot of challenges, a lot of obstacles along the way. Things are not always going to go the way you want them to go. You're going to have crappy training flights. You're going to make bad landings out on 3-5 right in a Seminole. You're going to make bad landings in a 330. Trust me, can vouch for that. You may not pass every stage check. You might not pass every check ride. Every test is not going to go perfect. It's okay. You are human. You will survive, and you will make it. This industry is not looking for perfection. It's looking for people who try as hard as they can, who are dedicated, who show up every day, follow SOP, are respectful to their coworkers, themselves, and the company. And when things don't go as planned, you just take a minute, sit back, and say, hey, you know what? That kind of sucked. That's not how I planned that to go. But what did I learn from it? What will I take from it? How will it make me better in the future? Because that stuff is going to happen. The road does not get any easier the further you go, but it's very, very much worth it. I can't tell you how many times, and I'm sure Chandler can vouch for this, where, it's time to start packing up the bag, getting ready to go to work, and I'm grumbling, and I don't want to leave, I don't want to go to work. You're always on the road. This is a hard job. The question is always, when do you leave next? And you're like, I just got home. But I get to work, I see my friends, the people I work with. It's a small company. We all know each other. It's a good crew. You launch off, you go down to Sydney. You see all 300 people get off the airplane at Sydney Airport. You walk off and you see the 330 out at the gate, and you're like, I just flew that thing with 300 people, 4,025 miles. It's pretty damn cool. And I get to do it again tomorrow. And all the sacrifices, all the months of the weather going down here at UND and not flying through for 3 weeks, 4 weeks, all the stressing over stage checks, checked rides, all the crappy schedules I've had over the years, those moments make it worth it. So hang in there, be good to yourselves. It's okay if things don't go as planned. If you mess up, take a pause, reevaluate, and move on. So we're really proud of all of you guys for being here today, and you're going to have a lot of success, whether it's with Hawaiian or wherever you go. Airline, cargo, ATC, management, teaching, anything. There's a lot of really good opportunities. And that about wraps it up. So I want to open the floor for questions, or Chandler, if you have any more comments, or
Just my own personal experience. Just being able to come back home to Hawaii after every trip, it's the best thing in the world. Yeah.
Where do most of the pilots flow from, like SkyWest normally? Or?
Yeah, it depends. We do have a lot of SkyWest pilots. Definitely, I would say any of the regionals Hawaiian prefers. The big emphasis is they want people to have a wide variety of experience, especially mainland, continental U.S., high volume airports, low weather airports, winter operations. But I would have to say, yeah, we do tend to get a lot of people from SkyWest. I'm not sure if it's just a West Coast thing or, but any of them would be great. I don't think there's one maybe that much more than another. I don't know.
Seems like SkyWest is, yeah. Unofficially, yeah. It's mostly SkyWest from what we've been seeing. Yeah.
You mentioned requirements
So we just kind of changed our minimums. Everybody is slowly etching down the minimums, and that's not a bad thing. It's just because that's the reality of the situation. So we are at 1,500 total time. They have not listed any PIC or turbine time in the actual application requirements. Now, as far as being competitive, of course that stuff is going to score you more points, set you apart, and they want to see it, but they're not going to reject an application because you do not have that. Yeah?
Do you have a pilot union?
We do. We're ALPA, so Airline Pilots Association, yes. Yep. Yep, good question.
I'm kind of guessing that it's just what you're hiring into, but do you generally see pilots going into the 717 before the A330 or 767?
Yeah, no, good question. It's completely random. It's wherever the need is. So Chandler, you got hired into...
Yeah, straight into the 330.
Yeah, straight into the 330. I got hired into the 717. So yeah, you could be right in from SkyWest, Endeavor, Envoy, wherever, right into the right seat of the 330 on your first trip to New York or Sydney or somewhere like that. Yeah, because that's just the nature of our flying. That's what we do. A large portion of our fleet are wide-body aircraft. So if we consider you to be qualified, you are qualified to train on and fly that aircraft. Yep, so it's completely random. Yep. Yep.
Do you get a lot of people from Ohana Airlines that go up to Hawaii?
So yeah. Ohana doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah.
They got rid of them. The market to Molokai and Lanai just wasn't there. So during COVID, they shut down the operation. So unfortunately, there is no, I think it used to be a flow or a guaranteed interview.
Yeah, I think we used to have a
one.
flow or something, but yeah.
But unfortunately, that doesn't exist.
No longer.
Anymore,
Yeah. But if somebody did have experience from Ohana, it would be a good thing on a resume. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, no, please, bring it on.
Considering like any, I guess not really flow, but like partnership with the regional anytime soon?
You know, I think it's always, and Chandler might know more, I think it's always under discussion. And I think it's going to come to the point where they don't have a choice and they're going to have to, because most people are. There was rumors a few years ago of actually SkyWest, I think, was some sort of program. So I guess I should, re-answer my question and say maybe it is SkyWest. But yeah, nothing currently, but I think that is absolutely under discussion, and it probably won't be long before something like that starts. Yeah.
Any talks on a 7-1 fleet replacement yet?
That's a tough one. Yeah, I did just see an interview with our CEO, Peter Ingram, and the problem is there's nothing equivalent. This is a Hardy airplane. They don't build them like this anymore. And this aircraft can handle the cycles. I mean, these airplanes, they're already going on 20, 21 years old, and they're doing 7, 8, 9, 10 legs a day. So think of the cycles on the gear, the pressurization, but they handle it really well. So there's nothing equivalent. He did say that for the foreseeable future, meaning 3 to 5 years, they are going to keep the 717. There's still enough of a parts stream since Delta has had them. It's available. We still have simulators available for training. The employees love it. The guests love it. There's nothing else like it. They have floated when the day does come. They're looking at the A220 and also the E17 or 195.
Yeah, either 19 or 195.
Yeah. So that would probably be the closest equivalent. Yeah, but yeah, they don't want to let it go. I mean, man, I think Hawaiian has had the DC-9 with the most cycles anywhere in the world, and now it's parked somewhere, and I think they use it for emergency training. But
it's on Lagoon Drive.
Yeah,
it's
but it's
a
solid airplane. I mean, Northwest flew them for I don't even know, 40, 50 years. So yeah, we love it. We don't want to let it go, but at some point we'll have to. So it's probably going to be some small Airbus or Embraer. Yeah. Yeah.
When you guys go to places like Australia,
Yeah, good question. So you definitely get a hotel. That's completely covered. You don't get a car or anything like that. You're on your own, but you also get per diem. So basically that means you get an hourly rate that's supposed to cover like your meals and food and drink while you're there. So that's an addition on top of your hourly pay. You get this per diem. And it varies by city. So if you go to Sydney, the cost of living there is a little higher. So you might have a higher per diem for that trip. But hotel is always covered. Yep, no matter what. Yeah, don't have to share a room or anything. It's you get your own room.
Yep.
Requirements that you have to meet in order to fly internationally, like to Japan or places like that?
The requirements?
Yeah, are there certain requirements aside from like initial hiring?
Nope, you just got past training.
Yeah, you have past training. And normally they do an international familiarization flight with you.
Yes. Sometimes I think they stop that. I'm not sure if they're redoing that right now.
I think it may not be a requirement, but they try to do a familiarization flight. Well, they will send you with a check airman, a check pilot, to an international destination just to give you kind of a preview of what you can expect. But there's no, you're qualified for it, you're not qualified for it. As long as your landing currency is within limits, your training is current, you're current on the aircraft, then yep, you're good to go for pretty much any city. The only thing that would potentially hold somebody back is if they had a passport issue. That could be an issue, but operationally, no. As a pilot, no. Everybody is responsible for every single city that's on your aircraft. Yep. These are good questions. There's got to be more. Come on. Yeah.
You talked about you commuted. How much is like the ratio from commuters versus people that live in
That's a really good question, and I don't have an exact number for you. All I can tell you is that it is increasing. I would say maybe a third.
About a third.
Yeah, about a third. And before all the pilots were consolidated, for years, forever, Hawaiian had a pilot base in Seattle, LA, San Francisco. But the company decided to close all the bases, and now it's all in Honolulu. So we still have a lot of those people. I fly with people all the time who are like, yeah, and I got hired, I was based in LA or San Fran or Seattle. So it's a good portion, and because there's more and more flights to Hawaii every year, it seems like there are more people taking advantage of that and commuting. So I commute from Oregon, from Portland, and I can fly on Hawaiian, Alaska. I can take and those are direct, a couple times a day. I can go down through San Francisco. So, anywhere on the West Coast, there's flights from San Diego to Seattle all day long, and it's really doable. And sometimes I think it's easier than having to commute, say, from, into Minneapolis or Detroit, where you have 14,000 other Delta pilots trying to get to Minneapolis, or so on and so forth. We're the only ones based in Honolulu, so there's not a lot of people fighting for jump seats or fighting to commute to Hawaii. So it's totally doable. Yep.
What's your guys' favorite route?
Yeah, you go, Chandler.
I like Tokyo Haneda. Good food, good beer, fun overnight.
Yeah, that's what's so fun is, we go to so many great international cities. You really get to experience everything on your layovers. We used to fly, I like Australia a lot. I do a lot of that. We used to fly to Brisbane, Australia. We don't anymore. COVID kind of shut that. But that was probably my favorite. But I do a lot of Boston. I like Boston. So a lot of those trips that are more efficient make a lot of sense for me because I can do one trip and get 21 hours out of it. And I only have to do that, 3 times a month, and then maybe add on like a 2-day Los Angeles trip or something. So yeah, so Australia is probably my favorite. Yeah. Good questions. Yeah.
How many times do you say you fly in total each month?
It depends. For me, I commute twice, so that means I probably fly 2 blocks of maybe 5 to 6 days is what I do. Yeah. Now, sometimes it varies. That's my goal. I try and make that a week on, a week off. That's what I do. Now, that week on might be comprised of 2 3-day trips. It might be 3 2-day trips. It might be a 2-day and a 3-day, some combination of that. But I will never fly more than about 6 days in a row, and usually never do that more than maybe twice a month. And then sometimes you have to add on another random 2-day at the beginning or the end. But I leave Oregon twice a month for work, and I've never gone for more than a week. So yeah, I don't know, Chandler, how you probably build your schedule differently because you live in Honolulu.
Yeah, so it's a little easier for me. I like to do 2-day West Coast trips. It's really efficient. A lot of our 2 days are built where you're only gone for roughly 24 to 30 hours away from base. So I could leave in the afternoon around 1 to 2 p.m., get back to Honolulu by 12 p.m. the next day. So I like to maximize my efficiency of the trips, and I want to be home as much as possible. Yeah.
Yep.
How does the training work, like initial training and recurrent training for Hawaiian?
Yeah, good question. So the initial training, I think it's about a 60-day footprint is what they do between your ground training and simulator training. So our training center is in Honolulu, so we have 3 simulators there, the 330, 321, and 717. So you'll do all your indoctrination, the ground training, in maybe a month, and then you'll do the simulator portion, which is probably anywhere from like 8 to 10 lessons, and then your check ride, and that'll be another month or so by the time it's all said and done with the scheduling. So I know for overflow, we do send people elsewhere for simulator training. I think right now we're sending people to Montreal for Airbus, and I think we also use Delta quite a bit in Atlanta because they have a 717 sim, which is really helpful to us. So sometimes we'll do that, but we try and keep everything right in Honolulu. So yeah, the recurrent training, it's once a year. It's our AQP, CQ. It's a 3-day event, 3 days of simulator, and they have it down to 1 day of ground school. So, yep. Good question.
In terms of maintenance for the C and D checks, do you guys do all that in-house on the island, or are you sending all your aircraft mainland, or how does that work?
717 is on island. The 330, we've been sending them to, I think, Delta in Minneapolis.
Yeah.
Does the checks?
Yep. Delta does, I think, most of the heavy aircraft maintenance. Yeah, like Chandler said, 71 is all in-house in Honolulu. We do painting in Singapore, so often we'll see a Singapore trip pop up, and it's because the aircraft's going to get painted. But all the heavy checks, I think, are in Minneapolis. So we see those trips pop up a lot, too. When I say pop up, we have what's called open time. So all the trips that are not covered, you can go in and look, and if you want to trade something or pick something up, you can. A lot of time those mini trips are in there. Yep. Yep.
What does your commute look like? So do you arrive the day before and stay in a hotel, or your own little pilot house?
I do, yep, good question. Again, it depends on your comfort level. I'm all about low stress. That's how I roll. So I always come in the night before. I have an apartment in Honolulu, so it's my crash pad. But I'm fortunate that I have the means to do that in this job. So I have a place, I have home in Portland, and then I have an apartment in Honolulu. So I always come in the day before, the night before I start a trip. Not everybody does that. Some people will commute in the day of. They'll have an afternoon departure, a New York or a Boston or something like that. They'll roll in on a morning flight, and then they'll work that evening. For me, that's too much heartburn, so I don't do that. But yeah, everybody's different. Some people share crash pads, so there'll be 4 or 5 pilots in one apartment. I did that for a while too, and then I just decided to get my own place. So it's just whatever you're comfortable working with. Yep.
Yeah, just some closing statements.
Yep.
I want to thank University of North Dakota, Sama, Bobby, Eddie put me in contact with Tim and Chandler, so pretty nice, and Dan Malott as well. Thanks for everything that you do. Yeah, is there any more questions? One more.
Does Hawaiian Airlines have any connection to Hawaiian helicopter tours in the area?
We do not. Nope. We have no connections with any kind of helicopter or any other operation in Hawaii. Yeah. Good. Thank you guys very much. We appreciate you showing up. We're proud of you guys. Stay with it. Maybe we'll see you someday.